Hi, it's Chris Titley here, and on today's podcast, we're joined by the co-founders of Faybl, or three of the co-founders of Faybl, George, Lucas, Leonard Choo, and Steven Goh. How are we all this morning?
Oh, very well, thanks, Chris. Thanks for having us on.
Yep, Chris, yeah, really good to be on the podcast.
Pretty awesome, Chris. Really good.
Excellent,
Be here in
good. We
Sydney.
got all three different locations, and I'm here in sunny Brisbane. But we're gonna talk about Faybl in a second. But before that, we've got a plethora of experience in financial services in background. George, I'm wondering if you can give the listeners a bit of an understanding about your background in financial services.
Sure, Chris. I've been in financial services now for a very long time, 35 years working not only in Australia, but London and the US. But, my last big venture in Australia was Raise Invest, which I founded, took from zero customers to, 300,000, nearly 300,000 customers, a billion of FUM, and it continues to grow and assist financial education and financial literacy in the market today.
Fabulous. And Leonard, your background?
Yeah, so for myself, started with Asgard back in Perth. We were the first master trust in Australia back then, back in the 90s. Then moved across with MLC NAB, helped roll out Advisor Central, and also the first centralized power planning unit. And then across to Hong Kong with IPAC Financial Planning, serving all the expats in Asia, and Aon Hewitt as well. And now I'm back here in Australia working with Faybl.
Brilliant, excellent. And Stephen, I've followed your progress through your career a little bit, but you want to give the listeners a bit of an understanding about your involvement in broking and equities, etc.?
Okay. Thanks, Chris. So I started off in chartered accounting and then worked in stockbroking briefly before founding a company called Sanford Securities nearly 30 years ago, which sort of says something about how old we are. And Sanford was, for those who may not remember, was first in Australia with most of what you see in online financial services in Australia right now, from market information to quotes to IPOs to managed funds trading to mobile options trading, and had a product called Virtual Broker, which reached about 150 financial planning groups for 6,000 financial planners. That got sold and rolled up in about 2002. What's been happening recently has made me really excited about doing something else in financial services in Australia yet again.
And Stephen, we've got George's experience in Raise and Leonard's experience with big, large financial services here and abroad, and obviously yourself with Sanford and being in the industry for so long, as you mentioned, 30 years. Let's talk about Faybl. Let's talk about the idea and the problem that it's solving.
Several years ago, so I get a lot of friends ask me to build another financial services company in Australia, and it's always been trying to find the right opportunity. I had a childhood friend several years ago who was getting a little bit older, bad divorce, empty nesting with two kids, and running a small business, and then trying to figure out how to find a future. She spent $30,000 with three financial planners, trying to get some information about trying to get a plan about how does she get older and just go to Bali with her girlfriends a couple times each year, and couldn't get an answer. And I thought I could come up with a technical solution. Back then, about 6 years ago, we thought we could do something, and it sort of worked, but sort of didn't. But about 3 years ago, so 2.5 years ago, when ChatGPT hit the airwaves, it was like, absolutely, yes, we could go and do that business now. And in the last 2.5 years, we've been figuring out how to get this thing to market, and we're here now. It's very exciting.
Fabulous. And George, just touching on that, you want to continue with about why Faybl?
Yeah, and it's a continuation of some of the work we were doing at Raise, but also some of the issues that we're seeing in the market with the financial advisor gap, which kind of exists not only here in Australia, but it's actually a global problem. As people are approaching retirement, they just can't afford financial advisors, and at the same time, we've seen a big drain of financial advisors from the market. We need ways to increase their productivity, and Faybl helps increase their probability. And then also it improves financial literacy because it's a tool that you can ask questions to, like a chat GPT, and will answer you, and you can follow and see the progress of your financial wealth being held by the hand of your financial advisors. I mean, one of the biggest things was that financial advisors were one of the key ways of people getting their financial literacy. And as less and less people can access them, there's kind of like less and less financial literacy in the market, which is one of the holes that Raise was also trying to fill.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And in regards to the actual product and the idea around solving a problem, but then actually building a product, Steve, do you want to talk about what Faybl is and how the iterations have happened and
Yeah.
what the segments that you're focusing on?
Yeah, originally Faybl started off as a direct-to-consumer play, just to give people the tools and the ability to find their own futures and use AI as the mechanism to help that. And there were many lessons in that, not just from my earlier businesses, but taking some inspiration from the great work that Georgia did with Raise and what we saw with Acorns and a few other companies like that in the world. It became very, very quickly clear that because it's a regulated industry and there's got to be financial advisors in the mix, that we need to go and fix the financial advisory problem, which is really quite gobsmacking. It's just astounding that the advice gap is in just about every country. It's above 85%, often above 90% in every country in the OECD. And we thought we could apply an AI stack to transform the experience of being a financial advisor, um, 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 taking away all the burden of the overhead and the administration away from them, and then helping them become the professionals that they want to be with relationships with their clients. And in doing so, we would be able to help advisors become more profitable, be happier at the jobs, and reduce the cost of their business and provide a more accessible service. So the Faybl in its current incarnation, it's on the front of our website, is about scaling advice, but this is an intermediate step to a much larger vision that we have about transforming people's experiences with financial services and finding their futures.
And Stephen, you did touch on the word AI and ChatGPT coming in a bit more
Yeah.
mainstream the last couple of years. Leonard, I'd be keen to hear your thoughts around AI in financial services. Is it just a buzzword that everyone's talking about, and that the application use in financial services, and I suppose your thinking around how that it's core to Faybl?
Well, from a lot of our, I guess, research and surveys that we've done, a lot of people have heard of AI, but the take up has been a little bit slow. So I think we did a survey at a conference just last week, and it came back maybe 40%. Have started sort of dabbling around sort of Chat GPT. And then in terms of actual AI solutions for financial planners, there's really not much out there beyond, say, a meeting note app, recording your meetings and getting a transcript. But nothing really goes beyond that. And then even the take up of that, you got the compliance issues, getting head office to approve certain apps. So the take up has been, quite slow here. But I would say globally, US probably leading in terms of take up of AI solutions.
And George, on that, do you think AI is a replacement eventually, or is it a tool for efficiency? And where does it sit in financial services?
It's definitely a tool for efficiency. I mean, if you think about it, Chris, people's financial lives are unstructured. As Stephen would say, they have a shoebox full of receipts. Yep. And so financial services is very structured. Like when you're filling in a mortgage form or insurance form, it's little boxes: first name, second name, date of birth, etc. The beauty of AI is it can take all that unstructured data and create a structure that fits into the financial services. And that's what Faybl does. It's not here to replace existing legacy systems. It sits above all the legacy systems. And I'm sure Stephen will talk later about how it acts as an agent with these. But the beauty of AI and why it makes financial services more efficient is that it allows people just to tell their story, just to bring all their unstructured data in, and very quickly the AI will structure it in a way that a financial services professional needs it.
And in terms of the financial services professional, you're talking about financial planning. I mean, can people, a bit like back in the days when I was in broking, people could just Google stuff about companies and they can do their own research, etc. Is Faybl going to be partnering with financial planning and financial planning groups to help
Yeah.
the actual professional do their work, or is it for me just to jump on the internet and go,
No,
oh, this is what I look like?
the idea of AI, and I'm sure Stephen will talk in a sec, of Faybl is really to be a partner with the financial service advisor, with the advisor, and help them do their job more productive and allow them to focus on what's important to them for the client, while the AI machine, by Faybl, structures the client's data, works out what the client needs to continue watching for, like what stocks are invested in, therefore I need to follow, what announcements are being made on these stocks, and et cetera, et cetera. I might throw it over Steven now because I can see he's gagging to go for this one. Go,
It's all
Steven.
good. So maybe we can talk about the general agent, Chris.
Sure, let's go.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
What is a general agent? Yeah.
Okay. So look, it's 2025, and there's like 70 years of compute out there, and everyone's experience with computing has largely been around creating ultimately structured records in databases, or alternatively small tactical stuff like using Word and Excel and the like. And that's been people's experience with compute. And then, in 2025, and 25 years of financial planning and wealth management services specifically. 10 years ago, it took 7 to 10 hours to do a financial plan or sort of portfolio review. In 2025, even with all the meeting note takers and some AI out there, it's still taking 7 to 10 hours. And the fundamental problem here is, whilst you are now um, um, able to deal with unstructured information in a different way to produce a product, most of the parts don't fit together. So, firstly, there's the opportunity that AI gives to change people's way or experience around computing. So that's one part of it. But the second part of it is that, let's say that we're in this call as a meeting and we take a meeting note. And that's great. AI has helped me take a meeting note. I can now file that, and that's lovely. But invariably, because that meeting note sits in the context of me producing a much larger workflow, invariably there's lots of little bits of information that are missing for me to complete that much larger workflow. So it's not unsurprising that a lot of people are reporting that, yeah, meeting note taker works well for part of the process, but they're still having to go back and do a lot of the meeting notes anyway, because they need that information to complete a larger portfolio review or whatever it might be. For us as a general agent, we attach ourselves first with we're shifted a little bit further to the front of the experience of being an advisor. We connect with your email, with your storage systems, with alerts and notifications like RSS feeds or any other information feeds. And very quickly, we start shadowing the advisor right from the beginning of the experience all the way to the end of a particular workflow. And because we see all the information that's needed all the way possibly to the end of a workflow, we're able then to help guide the advisor and the client through that process to find and create the real efficiencies or realize the promise that AI can give. So it's not about partial information in a meeting note. No, we get all the information required in the meeting note, required to complete the last execution form, the last statement of advice, the last ROA, or whatever it might be. And it's from this is why, and this is an amazing thing which we're doing with Xplan, which is it's a great grant. It's an incredible piece of infrastructure in Australia, but it's getting a bit old in the teeth. What's amazing is that using us with Xplan, so if you're using us with any platform, so if you're using any platform to produce a portfolio review, it may take 6 to 10 hours or however long it takes, but using us with the general agent with Xplan of all platforms is taking about 5 minutes, because the AI, you've got abundant, low cost, near instant intelligence, which is able to re-engineer, figure out all the process that's needed and bring it into the moment of advice. And it's able to literally produce all the requisite supporting documents, compliance documents, meeting notes, client correspondence, briefing notes, pretty much everything. Can cut it down to just minutes, which is pretty cool.
I'm interested to know around like the financial planning industry per se, whereby you would go in as a consumer, you would pay for advice, you would get a plan, etc., which you're helping with. But then all of a sudden, the president of the United States tweets something, or there's a global pandemic going on and something, and then all of a sudden it's not this year review. It's like, I need some assistance now. Can you talk about how
Yeah.
AI fits in, or the agent fits into market movements and the dynamic nature,
Yeah.
as opposed to just like once a year?
Oh yeah, well, in that regard, and this is why it's not just a workflow tool dealing with client events as they're occurring. When there's an environmental event that occurs, every financial planner, if you're a stockbroker, you might have 200 to 300 clients. If you're a financial planner, you might have 80 clients. And when something happens, like the reality is, every advisor is a human being. They have bounded rationality. So they're forever thinking about their top 10 or 20% of their clients the most. And they like to think that they're trying to help the longer tail of their client base. But being human beings, there are challenges just because they're human. What we do with the AI is that when real world events happen, we're actually able to pre-scan all the users, the advisor's client base, and figure out what is possibly right for each individual client, surface that and bring that to the advisor's sphere of rationality, where he or she is then able to make the right assessment then as to what has happened with the vista of their client base. So if you have 80 clients, you've got, say, 20 of them in tests which got exposure to Tesla directly, 20 of them which are thinking of taking a different position in Tesla, and say 30 of them with a managed fund exposure to Tesla. Then when that event happens, let's say the entrepreneur that is leading Tesla has a spat with the US with a US president, and then we can start forming views as to, well, what could this possibly mean, and surface that right for each client to the advisor, so that the advisor can respond quickly to the 80 or so clients which are calling him up asking, like, what the hell's going on, right? So we think that that's very helpful. The feedback we've had from some clients is it's really good. So but I'll let Leonard talk to
So
that.
just on a simple note, Chris, is when we say surface, we mean that the advisor will get a notification.
Yeah. Not
Yeah.
the end client, but I'm interested, Leonard, on just touching on the general agent, on how much it does, how many scenarios it can test, and I suppose when you go to a financial planner, it's someone you intimately trust. You might know them, you might have been dealing with them for 10 years, but if a computer gives a response, and the financial planner maybe says, or the AI gives a response and says, you've just done it in AI, you need a little bit of a personal approach. How are you integrating the personal approach of financial planners with the use of technology?
Yeah, so I mean, the Faybl agent assists the advisors in terms of grabbing a lot of the sort of the manual tasks that they do. So, like filling in a KYC form, or getting super statements, even file notes out of meetings. What Faybl does is it grabs all that and then it represents that information back to the advisor. It could guide the advisor in terms of some sort of high level recommendations, and then do a lot of work for the advisors. But before it actually does that, there's always a confirmation step where the advisor needs to review it. So I mean, AI is great, but you can still get things wrong. You hear the term hallucinations. So even before we get it to say interact with Xplan, the advisor needs to review that data before it goes in, because it takes a much more greater effort maybe to correct something after it's done. So we always have what we call the human in the loop. And I think that gives a level of comfort to the advisors that AI is not just out there doing its own thing.
Yeah, and just touching on that partnership with Xplan, or the integration, I suppose. Why would it be a bit of a game changer for them?
Well, most of the advisors that I deal with, they have a sort of common comment around, how I guess difficult it is sometimes and time consuming it is to interact with their Xplan interface, which really hasn't really changed in the last 10, 15, 20 years. So they find it great that all they need to do is interact with the Faybl interface, drop in, say, a super fund statement, or have a recording from a meeting, capture all that information, and then just with a simple one line command, Faybl will do all that operating of Xplan for them. So it gives, I guess, Xplan a better sort of experience with the advisor, in that they actually don't have to touch Xplan. So a lot of my demos I do with advisors, I don't even open up Xplan, and I'm actually interacting with Xplan. So our existing users, they love that.
Yeah.
George, I'm interested to know, from your point of view, about when the agent comes in and it's all working well, the client experience from the financial planner, how is that going to change? You know, all of a sudden now you've got a financial planner that's got the tools, they got the efficiency, they got the speed, they got the know-how about dynamic information. But from a client point of view, you would assume that the experience just goes from here to there.
Yeah, that's what will happen because one, as Stephen pointed out, that the massive time efficiency that comes out from using this, and the whole idea is to get the financial advisor to to have more contact with their client or have more time with their client. So I hope from that point of view, even though Faybl is producing the information, the advisor will actually have more time to call their client or whatever to pass that information on to them, whatever way they want to do it. Faybl is obviously very personal. You can personalize it, so each advisor can personalize it to their own templates and their own styles for the model. But eventually, also clients will be able, to see things through the interface as well. So they'll have 24/7 access, even though there's a financial advisor, to do some things. So, the thing which makes Faybl very attractive to outside investors to invest in the company is it's not just a note taker. It's actually changing the entire business process for a financial advisor and their entire business model and their workflow, as Stephen has touched on quite a lot. And there are not that many AI products, if any, out on the market at the moment that actually do that. Yeah. Go, Stephen.
Yeah. Chris, if I can add to that. So, in financial planning, you have the advice process, and the advice process exists because fundamentally it's a way to get the degree of professional standards in the industry to a particular point where the level of advice is exactly what it should be. It's with the right care and diligence needed to deliver each client whatever bit of advice is needed for them, right? So you've historically had this advice process. Now, something very interesting has happened in software engineering. So if you are writing software, like I'm writing a website or I'm writing a mobile phone application or whatever it might be, people have traditionally thought about writing software in largely a waterfall process. Someone comes with a bunch of requirements, they come up with an idea for a bit of software. It goes through either some waterfall or some iterative process, ultimately through some testing, ultimately to some finished product. And there's a parallel there between software engineering and the advice process. There's a parallel between software engineering and the advice process in financial planning. Well, what's happened in software engineering is because AI has brought reasonable, sufficient, abundant, and near instant intelligence to the process. There's this cultural moment going on in software engineering called vibe coding, and you might have seen this or you might have heard this online, where people are sort of feeling like, I feel like a website. I'm going to do a website where I've got a shoe on my head. No, actually, I'll change my mind. Maybe I've got to go shoe on my shoulder instead. Maybe the horse in the background or whatever it might be, right? And as you're feeling it out and you're just vibing away, the AI is literally building an entire application, building a website, doing everything, whatever, compiling it and deploying it near instantly, which is just incredible, which just shows the impact that low cost, abundant, near instant intelligence can bring to what has traditionally been a waterfall process. Well, in financial planning, and you've got the advice process. Well, here's our general agent. What's your experience with the general agent? Well, the general agent basically can do the same thing to financial planning as what is going on in vibe coding in software engineering, because it's able to run around and do everything and compress the timelines in near instant. It's entirely possible that you could email an advisor. The KYC process, which for a bank could cost $2, $3, $4, $5,000 for a client and take weeks or even months, collapses down to 30 seconds to a minute. You're delivering a financial plan with your client. People are human beings. They meet an advisor, and the way a meeting unfolds could unfold differently to how it was originally set up. Someone could come and have a meeting, talk about, well, I'm talking about my age pension and this is how I'm thinking of my life, but did I forget that I had a bad divorce or a car and a truck, and maybe I've got two kids who are thinking about something. And as that meeting unfolds, because once again you have abundant, low cost, near instant intelligence, the AI is able to help the advisor literally pull in all the information, draft a changing, unfolding piece of possible advice as the meeting is actually happening, and actually then do real-time compliance checks and actually compile compliance in real time whilst the meeting is progressing. So you could actually get to a near full piece of, now we wouldn't recommend that. We think it's important that, you go through some process, and at the end of it, there's still all the robust compliance processes at the end of post the meeting to make sure that, for all the right reasons. But what I just described, yeah, you would be cutting the advice process to like down from 2 weeks to 8 weeks, down to like within the day, possibly within the hour. um, Compliance checks and everything. Like, and that's really game change. Complete change the economics of the industry. It changes the way that advice gets given. It changes people's experience with advice. It changes people's experience with their financial services. We think that's pretty cool. And beyond this, beyond just the general agent that we have for the advisors, we want to get back very much to the original vision of the company, which is to give a direct to consumer play and give the power of, once again, agents in the hands of consumers, where the last consumer can find a future. Advice and the tools to become a better person, it's given to them. And we'll come up with something very, very interesting sometime later this year on that note. Yeah.
And Leonard, I'm curious. Stephen mentioned a couple of things there. One is about compliance, and one is also around about the numbers of clients that financial planners have. Now, let's say you're in a client meeting and the client's talking about things, and they're saying, "Oh, actually, I've still got to lodge my tax return. It's due in a couple of weeks. I'll probably be up for a $16,000 bill coming up." And then they keep talking and keep talking, and you're doing the meeting, and then all of a sudden the meeting ends, and then you go on to the next client, but you kind of forgotten about that. How important is it from a compliance point of view that the general agent is in the background doing these things? And I suppose from a service level point of view, as you can then alter your financial plan based on that, that's something you might have forgotten about because you're so busy.
Yeah, well, as the AI is present in that meeting with the advisor, it captures everything that's been discussed, and then also what has not been discussed. So if you've loaded in your own practice compliance checklist, the Faybl agent can reference that and say at the end of your meeting, this is what's missing, and then can alert the appropriate people in your team as to this is what you need to follow up on. So it's a really good tool here where you've got a shadow to your meetings, and then coming out of that meeting, you just go straight to your next meeting, and you know that in the background, you've got sort of Faybl presenting alerts to the rest of your staff members to say this is what you've got to follow up on.
Yeah, and George, on that, in terms of the numbers of products that can be recommended, and all these different super funds, and all this, maybe do self managed, maybe not, all these different things. How would AI help with that as well?
Well, I mean, you still have to use the approved product list for advisors. But as I mentioned, the AI, you know, Faybl is very personalized for each practice, so that they can use their own approved product list. But it will also help do a lot of the comparisons for best interests, which are required by advisors. And as Leonard pointed out, it does it very quickly and efficiently because each advisor will have their own compliance checklist, their own way they run compliance, and Faybl can be customized to meet each advisor's compliance. So on all aspects of the client business, from portfolio creation, compliance, and as Stephen goes, reducing down the time that it takes to do, Faybl is just going to be a great shadow or assistant or partner or co-pilot to any advisor using it.
And Leonard, when it comes to product and developing ideas and thinking about the future of financial advice when it comes to AI, what's some of the feedback you get from people firstly, and then from your own point of view going, well, what happens if we did this? How would that actually change the thinking of an advisor, or change the client experience?
Well, at the moment, a lot of the interactions with a lot of apps is like you're typing instructions into a sort of a chat sort of box. And I think in the future you could have something like a Siri or an Alexa where you can just talk to the application, and it will understand what you want it to do, run the appropriate agent in the background, and then perform all the tasks for you. So I think that's something that a lot of our users they're asking what are the next steps that we can do. And then also in terms of integrations, I mean, we have very great integrations with Xplan and a few other apps, but building that out to be inclusive of a lot of the common sort of lesser known apps out there beyond Xplan, yeah, that's also something that a lot of our users are asking for.
And
But I think
Stephen,
Stephen will probably have more on
yeah,
that
yeah,
as well.
I'm going to ask a question to Stephen about that. Like, we've had a federal election recently, and one of the big topics was about the unrealised capital gains tax and superannuation. And if a bill gets passed, then it's changing again. The goalposts change when it comes to super, for
Mm,
instance. And then you've got equity markets going up and down, and Tesla going up and down, etc. How, when it comes to regulatory change, how easy is it for financial planners to use technology and use to Faybl to say, actually, what if? Let's scenario test a few things.
yeah.
It might not be in legislation just yet, but if it is, this is what it looks like.
Yeah. So the way we've put the general agent together is it can operate other tools, but doesn't want to be a tool in itself. And it's aligned to other tools. So as a function of that, it means that as people come up with other applications which are useful to the advice process, we don't want to compete with a CRM. We don't want to compete with Xplan. We don't whatever. We want to help change people's productivity equations in their relationship with all those applications to deliver whatever their final product is going to be. That's the way we think about it. So in the case of, say, the last election, where there's speculation on regulatory change and what the possibilities may be, yes, Faybl should, subject to the tools that are available to it, should be able to help an advisor speculate and model what may actually affect his clients and be able to inform his clients on a timely and regular basis. So that is possible. And we're currently at the moment, not just in Australia, but UK and USA as well. We've just got a long integration list of things that we're sort of backing into it. And then we're working with a whole bunch of our first clients and actually getting it deployed and aligned, and the Faybl aligned to their service delivery and local knowledge and events and all that sort of stuff as well. So we're currently in that process at the moment.
Yeah, you touched on that being maybe being global. I remember back in the early days, maybe a decade ago, when Xero went to America, there was they battled a little bit with every state's different legislation on the taxes and the GSTs,
Yep.
etc. I mean, from a global point of view, what are you thinking about Faybl? Obviously based here in Australia, but are you thinking offshore?
Oh, well, I had a couple of experiences with Sanford where, it was just, we wrote everything, back end chess settlement, market information system, pretty much everything. And it was fantastic. We got recognition around the planet for being best in breed globally, but to take that to another country was really hard. So taking some of the lessons from that experience and listening to George's experience and Lawrence's at East Agile and many others, where we've put Faybl together in a posture where it can learn or adapt to local environments on its own to a point. It still needs a little bit of work by jurisdiction, but it's not a mountain of work. It's a local deployment, local integrations, getting some local knowledge bases together, and we use AI in our own development process, and we use AI in our own operations, and the AI actually helps pre-draft and pre-attenuate itself to local conditions and the like, which is pretty cool. Yeah, so that makes our ability to go global with this platform pretty cool. Yeah.
And George, if we were to repeat this podcast in 12 months' time, we're sitting here in June, where would you like to see the business, and where would you like to see the products? And I suppose a little bit of a roadmap for potential investors as well out there on where Faybl could be.
Yeah, sure. I mean, at the moment, even though we're focusing on the Australian market, as Stephen mentioned, we're moving into the US, and we're beginning to line up our first customers in the United States. And so hopefully in 12 months' time, we would like to see 2,000 to 3,000 seats here in Australia, but also getting to 2,000 or 3,000 seats in the USA, and starting to think about progressing into the UK as well. And which Stephen can talk about more. So I'm going to throw it to Stephen after I finish this in a sec. But as Stephen did mention, we also like to improve the interface so that it becomes a little bit more of a retail product, not necessarily a product that competes with financial advisors, but it allows it to be driven a lot more by the retail customer, and with a financial advisor, a lot more hands off. Do you want to talk more about that, Stephen?
Oh yeah, thanks, George. I think we're substantially aligned there. We want to see. We think this is a global opportunity. First with Australia, but we've got a set of processes to get a product out in the US like now, which is pretty cool. And we think that a year from now, we hope to be able to help tens or hundreds of millions of retail consumers as they're trying to figure out the pathways to their future, and then support a range of advisors that'll help them get there. We've also had a lot of interest from banks and other financial institutions, and we're having a few conversations there at the moment. And watch this space. It could be really exciting. Yeah.
On a final note, I'm going to throw to all of you, but Leonard, first off with you. Why are you excited to work with Faybl?
Oh, well, I mean, I came into the business just as ChatGPT just came out, and just looking at how it could actually improve and substantially and significantly cut down on the advice process. Because I've been in advice operations for a very long time, and to actually see how we can apply AI to that process, and you will see a like 1 hour process cut down to a few minutes, and that's amazing. So I've not seen anything else like this on the market. Everything else just dabbles around the edges, but yeah, Faybl is amazing.
And George, you've worked with private companies, you've worked with public companies, lots of different companies. You're an entrepreneur, you've been around, you've seen a lot in the industry. Why are you excited to be part of the Faybl co-founding group?
Yeah. So 2023 was an iPhone moment, Chris. It was the beginning of the way the world will change and being driven by AI. Stephen mentioned, quickly one of these changes was vibe coding, which is coming out. But in the next 7 to 10 years, AI is going to change the way we do everything and the way we even interact with our phones. I mean, we're already hearing discussions about how the interfaces are going to change under AI. And so to be there, to be at the cutting edge, to be doing something where we're one of the first truly autonomous agents out there, is just really fantastic and really exciting. And, this is the way the world's going. And either you get on board or you're going to be left behind. And, it's just like the way iPhones were back in 2007 when they first came out. Yeah. And who knows what Nokia is now?
Yep. Yep. No, agree. And Stephen, George touched on a little bit personalization and AI and financial services and efficiency gains. As one of the co-founders, as Faybl, what gets you up? What gets you excited in the morning?
Well, just helping people. We think most financial advisors mean the best by their clients, and want to help their clients better, but they're burdened or chained by administrative overhead and by an administrative overhead. And we think that there's a lot of people out there who want not just advice, but the experience of financial services to live a better life, which I think goes beyond just simple advice. And I think the common AI's power to transform people's experience in both cases can be really profound, and building something that our customers love to help them get there. It's a lot of fun. It's very, very satisfying. Yeah.
George, Leonard, and Stephen, thank you so much for having a chat today about Faybl. Congratulations on what you've built thus far and the partnerships that you're progressing here and abroad. I'm looking forward to following your progress and keeping abreast of what is happening with Faybl, and looking forward to catching up in person.
Yep. Fantastic. Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, Chris.